The next thing that we're going to talk about today is the operation of the Gen7 Timer through the interface, which is now a laptop or a desktop, some type of Windows device. You can even use a Windows tablet as long as it runs the Windows software. It will operate our Gen7 swimming. So we find the icon here, double click. Comes up, you should see it's version 1.6.2. And right now, because we're remote from the timer and we're connected via the district's network, it took a second there to find where the timer was at and connect the two. The next thing that we have here is simultaneous multi-pool racing. We can run, I think, up to 3 pools at once from one timer. Right here we can select either pool 1 or pool 2 for this facility. We're going to be in pool 1. It says, hey, you're in a current session here. Do you want to go back and continue running that session, or do you want to do something different? I'm going to say select something different so you can see that process. I'm going to say new meet, and we're going to do training. Video. And you can put your start date, your end date. And here it's going to ask what course we're using, whether it's short course yards, short course meters, or long course. We're going to be doing short course yards. We can put some kind of tag in there, morning session. And here we select which course we're going to use. We have several different courses with this 50-meter pool. The one we're using right now is the dive end cross course. One thing I want to note here, if you select a course that you don't have something plugged in for, whether it be a bulkhead or something like that, it's going to give you this red exclamation. If you hover over that exclamation, it'll tell you what isn't connected. So if we wanted to try and run a cable harness right now, we can't because it doesn't see the cable harness because it's not connected. But it went out and it found all the nodes that it needed for this dive cross course, and so we can go ahead and select it and say OK. All right, when it first comes in, it brings you to a screen where it's in the Sessions tab. This is where you can download all the events from High-Tech that we covered just a little bit ago. If we're using some kind of special lane assignments, we're not using certain lanes for COVID or whatever like that, we can go in and we can say, I just want to use lane 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And so when we go into the software and we finish one race and we go to the next race, those lanes will always come up and be turned off. I'm going to go ahead and turn them back on. It's just a toggle. And here for lane mapping near end, we can have it normal, just like in our previous timers where you can do normal or reversed, depending on what meet you're running and how they want to do it. Over here we have the number of lanes in the pool. For international competition, we can start with lane 0. Here it is the course that we've selected. Over here we don't see anything right now because we haven't downloaded the meet from High-Tech. Let me do that real quick so you can see this come from the other end. Select our session, interface, download events. It's writing those events, and here that same message comes up. A new event sequence has been loaded from the meet management software. Okay, and you can see all of your events here. If you wanted to add time trial or something like that, you could do that at this point. Once you have everything the way you want it, you can save and go back. This is the main swimming screen for the Gen 7 software. I just want to kind of point out some things here. It shows what version it is up here. We have a manual start. As long as it says ready for start right here, we can start a race. Other icons that we have going across the top are print, race data, diagnostics, settings, quick options. We have the time of day, the date, and the battery. It shows that it is plugged in and that it's at 100%. It will turn red when the battery gets low. Along the side here, we have this little hamburger menu. We can pop that up for quick actions. Turn the far end on or off, post by place, clear lanes on the scoreboard. And all those are here at the click of a button. Coming back over here, the current meet is training video, shows the date that we're doing it. Event, we have the boys 400 yard freestyle prelims. We can switch to any other race that we want to. We can go in and change the events or the parameters of that event. Here we advance to the next event. Down here we have the heat. We can advance to the next heat, or we can advance to the next empty heat. We do count every race that we get a start for. It will increment by 1 every time you get a start. So if you're looking for, let's say you've done some testing ahead of time and you start off and the first event in heat are race number 13, that's what you're gonna wanna look up in high tech is race number 13. Here we do have records where we can put in record times. That's in the settings page or in the sessions page. Time standards, we do have up to 4 scores that we can post just here. By clicking on it, we have home, guest 1, guest 2, and guest 3. Moving down here, we have the different lane numbers. Let's go back to settings. And I want to turn lane 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2 off. Save and go back. Now on the screen you can see where I've turned all those lanes off. If we give it a start input, we'll see the lane is, just lane 1 is running. If you look on the scoreboard, you'll see lane 1 is running. I can still go in here and turn lanes on if I want to. You can see on the screen here and on the scoreboard, lanes are coming on as I click on them. I can turn them back off. And we're gonna leave just lane 1 on so that I can show you a couple things without having to touch every lane. I'm gonna walk over here and I'm gonna give lane 1 some inputs. So we're just gonna plug the touchpad in. Press the front of the touchpad. And now you look up on the scoreboard, see lane 1 is finished. It's first place, well, finished that lap. This is a 200 medley relay, so we're gonna keep going. But you see the touchpad input come in on the screen. You would have seen that touchpad input come in, and now you have the first lap split. First lap split was the 50-yard split, and it was 48 seconds and 65 100ths. Let's say this was a relay race, and the next person got in the water, and right now we have 15 seconds that the touchpad goes dead. That allows that swimmer that swam their lengths to get out of the water without incurring another touch. If they did hit that touchpad outside of that parameter, it would bring up another touch. So in order to take that touch away, right here, minus touch lane 1, and now we go back and we don't have any splits. Let's say it's little kids, and little kids are just trying not to drown and aren't hitting the touchpad effectively. So they come, they grab the top of the touchpad, they turn around, they go the other way, and it doesn't record a touch. In this situation, we will hover over the plus touch button, hit plus touch, and it will show that we are on the next set of lengths. There is no split time because the split time is wrong, but when the next touch comes in, it will be the appropriate length. I'll demonstrate that by just hitting the touchpad here again. All right, you saw that touch come in. Now we come back over here, and in the software it shows it was the 100-yard split, and so it will keep on going from there on. The next button I want to talk about is finish arm. So let's reset this real quick. If we hit reset without it being the end of the race, without all lanes having finished, it's going to ask you if it was a false start. I'm going to go ahead and say this. Yes, this was a false start. So now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select a 50-yard. So we're just looking for one input. We'll go ahead, give it a start. Actually, let me do it from the start system. All right, we're off and rolling. So this is just a 50-yard event. If we are using push buttons at the end of the race, we're gonna have 1 up to 3 people standing there. And with the way that this pool is constructed, the touchpads are right on the edge of the water. So if somebody inadvertently, trying to do a good job, comes up with their push button and steps on the front of the touchpad accidentally, you're gonna see that the touchpad is finished. Swimmer may be just a couple feet from the wall. The action that needs to be taken by the operator of the timing system is what's called a finish arm. And we have 2 ways that we can finish arm. We can finish arm just the lane, or we can finish arm all. If it's just an error that occurred in lane 1, finish arm lane 1. Time catches back up to where it's supposed to be, and when the touch comes in, the race will end. Here we have our placing. We didn't get any buttons because we're just using the touchpad, but it shows that the race is finished. All we have to do at this point is click on finished, save and reset, and then advance the event or the heat. We can advance the event to the next event this way, or we can pick an event we want to go to if we're doing some kind of weird finals program. In this case, we're just going to go to the next heat. I'm going to plug a few backup buttons in so we can see what those look like in conjunction with the touchpad. We're just going to demonstrate what happens at the end of a race when the buttons come in with the touchpad. So we'll give it a manual start here. We're off and running. We're just looking at lane 1. So we say that the touchpads and backup buttons should come in together within 0.3 of a second. If it's outside of that interval, it may be something that we want to look at. So I'll show you both cases, when they come in together and when they come outside of that interval. The first one is going to be together. No. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit all 3 backup buttons and the touchpad at the same time. 1, 2, 3. So that race is finished. We've got all the inputs. And if we look on the screen here, there's nothing flagged. It's all the same color. If I want to click on one of them, I can say, I just want to use the B and C times. I want to use A, B, and C times. And after you select that, you can update and select to use the backup time. If you like the backup time, let's say it's a backstroke or a breaststroke where they touched the pad, but it didn't, the pad didn't activate. and we want to use that backup time. Right now it shows 35:59. If we say use, it changes it on the scoreboard and on the software to 35:67. I can restore that pad time by saying, no, that wasn't right. The official came over, said we want to use the 35:59, and I can restore that. All right, so that's the situation when all of the backup buttons and touchpads come in within that 0.3 of a second. We're gonna run another race, and we're gonna show you, here we get a little warning, says, hey, you've already used this event and heat. So we'll go ahead and move it to a next heat. So we're at the end of the race. It's just a 50. We're looking for backup buttons and touchpad. So let's say this is a butterfly. It's a little kid, and all they want to do at the end of the race is breathe. So we have the 3 buttons that come in, and they hit the touchpad, but nothing happened. And then they kick it with their leg or they hit it with their elbow, and the touchpad comes in. So now you see on the screen here, it's all in red. It says, hey, we got issues over here. Touchpad time is 37:08. Our buttons are way earlier than that, but hey, look, all them buttons are pretty close together. So we go to our official, say, hey, this is the situation, what do you want to do? And more than likely the official will say, yeah, let's use the backup time. So we'll promote the backup time. It goes to the display. If that changes the order of finish, you'll see that change on the scoreboard as well. That is the nuts and bolts of getting the right number of touches into the timer for any particular race by either removing or adding touches. The next section that I want to cover is our diagnostics. This is kind of a new feature with our serial system. It allows us to do a pre-meet check so that we don't actually have to be running a race, and we can have a really nice graphical interface here to show us what's working, what's not working. If you look on the right side of the screen, you'll see a legend here. Green is for a momentary closure, yellow is for corrosion, a red exclamation point is for shorted, blue is for open, and then the background input needed if it's white, gray not detected, and incorrect input. So we're just going to start the test. And it says Diagnostics is running. This works in conjunction with the scoreboard as well. First thing I'm going to do is go give us a start input from the start system. If you look on the screen here, you'll see that green check mark came up right here. That says we got a good start signal from the start system. And we'll go over to lane 1 where we've got our touchpads and our backup buttons. We'll hit the touchpad, and if you look up on the scoreboard, it'll say P for pad and N for near end. If that was the pad on the far end and we had a far end connected, it would say PF. And then as we push the buttons, that's the B button, that's the A button, that's the C button. So it's just a nice way to one person to be able to run a test to make sure that the entire timing system is working correctly without input from anybody else. We don't have to have somebody sitting at the timer or at the interface saying that those came in. We can just see it on the scoreboard, and then when we come back over, we can see it on the graphical interface of the software as well. You look right here and it shows a green check mark for the touchpad, a green check mark for the A button, the B button, and the C button. It also is going to tell us that a touchpad was detected and the parameters of that. It's pretty cool stuff. So that's the pre-meet check. We do need to stop that test before we can start an event. Once we hit stop test, it'll say ready for start. We can go back. We do have option to print a race, and then we have the option to go back and look at race data. So if a coach comes up and says, hey, I want to look at the the girls 50-yard freestyle event, Heat 2. We can click on this, go to Heat 2, and we can see what happened in Heat 2. If we want to, we can print that race for them. Really easy to activate, really easy to use. We can go back to the main screen. One other thing that I want to cover in settings. The general tab, we have the accent color for the software. You can use whatever accent color you want. I'm partial to blue. The beeper volume for the interface when we receive touches, whether they're touches or backup buttons, anytime we receive an input, it should beep. Input-output course mapping, we can edit that. We can put in a default governing body. Under timing, this is where we change our pad delays at the start, our reaction window, near-end pad delay, far-end pad delay, relay judging interval, pad to backup comparison. That's at 0.3 of a second we were talking about. We can time down to the thousandth of a second if we need to, but most governing bodies have it as hundredths. We can tell what the primary finish is, either the near-end pads, far-end pads, races with even length count. Default start end is either the near end or the far end. A lot of this is reminiscent of the menu in our System 5, System 6. Backstroke start reaction, enabled, disabled. So as long as you got touchpads in the water, when backstroke race is started, you'll see a time come up on the scoreboard for their start reaction time that tells you how long it took that swimmer to get off of the touchpad after the start of the race. You can have that enabled for every race, using relays and stuff like that, or only for backstroke events. Missed pad warnings, you definitely want to have that turned on. Scoreboard, we really don't need to do anything here because we have a video board and all the default codes are used. Printing, this is where we set up our default printer. Any printer that you can load drivers on to the software for the machine, it will recognize that printer and allow you to select that printer. We already covered session. The last thing that I want to cover is update. Every so often, we'll come up with a software and sometimes a firmware update. When you load that software on your laptop, the first time that you plug it in and connect it to your timer, if the timer is a different version, when you first open the software, it will say, hey, you need to update the software and or firmware on your timer, and it'll take you to this page. All you have to do is click update, and it will update anything that needs to be updated. Right here you can see, congratulations, all device firmware is up to date for this version of Gen 7 Swimming. The very last thing that I want to talk about is the defaults. So if we go to our general tab and we say we want the volume this way, we go to our timing, we say we want this stuff this way, for any certain meet, we can make that the default and set current user settings as defaults, restore a different user, restore factory defaults. The one that you'll probably use the most is set current settings as user defaults. And so your start reactions, your near and pad delays, your volume, your colors, everything that you have set the way you want it is going to remain that way until you change the defaults. And that is the operation of the Gen 7 timing software. To exit the software, right up here at the top, close. And we have the ability to send a power off command to the timer itself. And that completes this portion of the training.